2026 is a reminder that we are moving toward the end of the year. And it's also a matter of you making sure that when it comes to assessment of the progress, challenges at a personal, professional, and also economic development, where are we standing? Today, like any other day, we give you an update, especially of what is happening. And our news bulletin will be starting with what is happening in the SADC region, especially when it comes to the summit, the 46th Ordinary Summit of SADC Head of States and Government. Will be able to look at what the Executive Secretary of SADC had to say, especially when it comes to value addition, urging the African leaders to make sure that when it comes to minerals, value addition is prioritized and is prioritized now. Our second aspect, we look at constitutional lawyers, African constitutional lawyers, who made sure that when it comes to 2022 annual conference that happened in Namibia, they came up with a book on trade law and Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where they are integrating constitutionalism with sustainable development. We'll be able to listen to Professor Miller, especially what he had to say. From there, we'll look at corporate appointment at RMB Namibia, especially when you look at the new head of Treasury and Trade. And from there, we'll be able to give you an update on what is happening, especially in Zambia regarding the elections, what is happening in Zambia when it comes to the progress of elections. From there, we'll look at the international foreign exchange rate, where is Namibia standing, where is the dollar standing. Then we'll give you other continental news. Stay tuned. We are coming back shortly.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its staff.
Wapumbwa Eva tere ulikoni maondo tuto ingida ashike kapeno nwe udite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna evitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado inawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamo ili nawa ninge kwata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile komberewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane. Eagle FM, the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I am planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Simon, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081 270 3727 or the office number 083 2888 400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Moving forward with On the Radar News Bulletin, we are starting with 46th Ordinary Summit of SADC Head of States and Government, where the Executive Secretary of SADC addressed the Head of State of the regional economic body to look at the aspiration, the progress, and the challenges that SADC is facing. Let's look at Erias Magosi, who is the Executive Secretary of SADC.
Hospitality and generosity extended to all delegates and guests. We are especially privileged by the presence of their excellencies, heads of state and government, whose leadership, vision, and unwavering commitment continue to guide our community in advancing regional integration, peace, stability, sustainable development, and our shared prosperity. I also extend a warm welcome to our cooperating partners, some of who are amongst us today, representative of continental communities. Today, our region is home to approximately 382 million people and a combined gross domestic product exceeding 847 billion United States dollars. These achievements are a testament to the transformative power of unity, of partnership, and of collective action. Our progress has been made possible by a foundation that remains indispensable, and that is peace and stability. The relative peace and stability enjoyed across our region reflects the commitment of member states to choose dialogue, diplomacy, democratic governance, conflict prevention, and peaceful resolution of disputes. These are rare attributes in most parts of our continent and should be guarded jealously to sustain the peace we are enjoying today. Yesterday, the Troika Summit of the SADC Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation reviewed political and security developments across the region, including the situations in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the republics of Madagascar and Mozambique. This has reaffirmed our shared responsibility to safeguard peace, security, and stability as essential prerequisites for sustainable development and regional integration. Your Majesty, Excellencies, the situation in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo remains a matter of concern. We welcome the progress reported through diplomatic engagements and the African-led peace initiatives. We trust that these initiatives bear fruits of peace, of coexistence, social harmony, and economic progress, rather than reverse the gains already achieved by previous interventions. SADC remains steadfast in its solidarity with the government and the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and reaffirms its commitment to supporting efforts to restore peace, protect civilians, and create conditions conducive to sustainable development. We also extend our solidarity to the government and the people of the DRC as well as they contend with the Ebola outbreak. Our heartfelt condolences go to the families and communities who have lost loved ones. Our deep appreciation goes to the dedicated healthcare workers who continue to sacrifice their very own lives to serve and save others. And to our partners, including the Africa CDC, the World Health Organization, among many others, for coordinating and supporting the response efforts. This outbreak, however, is a stark reminder of the importance of strengthening regional cooperation in health security, disease surveillance, preparedness, and coordinated and swift response as a community. SADC remains committed to supporting member states in building resilient health systems capable of effectively addressing current and emerging public health challenges. We are equally encouraged by the positive dialogue taking place in the Republic of Madagascar through efforts of the SADC Secretariat, the Panel of Elders, and the Mediation Reference Group. Such efforts continue to strengthen trust, consensus building, and inclusive governance. Your Majesty, Excellencies, our region is also affected by the frequent and rapidly changing global environment, which is characterized by economic uncertainty, climate-related challenges, technological transformation, and shifting geopolitical realities. These occurrences are increasingly reminding us of why we exist as a community and why we must expedite our own integration. We now realize that we can no longer depend on others elsewhere, but on ourselves, that we need each other more and must depend on each other more, and so must trust each other more. Equally, in an increasingly interconnected world, no country can realize its full potential in isolation. Our strength lies in working together, trading together, investing together, and building together. Your Excellencies, I believe that we have a duty to create this reality and future for ourselves. As the global economy transitions towards clean energy, digital technologies, and advanced manufacturing, SADC is uniquely positioned to play a strategic role. The region is endowed with abundant reserves of critical minerals, including platinum group metals, lithium, cobalt, graphite, manganese, rare earth elements, and copper, all of which are essential to the industries of the future. Our ambition must be to move beyond the export of raw materials and position SADC as a globally competitive center for beneficiation, value addition, manufacturing, innovation, and indeed the industrialization we are pursuing. However, the challenge for us as a region is not a lack of these resources, nor is it that we don't know their potential to transform our economies and change our fortunes. It is not even that we have not talked about them in the past and made commitments to change the trajectory. The challenge is, when do we stop them transporting them in raw form and start adding value to them and creating sustainable jobs and wealth? Once more, we do not need permission from anyone to start this process. Let us start now.
Yeah, that is the Executive Secretary of SADC, that is Erias Magotsi, indicating to the head of state that SADC must start now, especially when it comes to value addition to its minerals, and indicating that the regional economic body does not need permission from anybody to add value to its natural resources. Moving forward, the 2022 African Constitutional Lawyers Annual Conference that happened in Namibia has brought about academicians, researchers, professors to come together and present their papers, and indeed published a book that is integrating constitutionalism with sustainable development, to look at the aspect of making sure that constitutionalism and sustainable economic development is integrated. Let us listen to Professor Miller.
There's a chapter on Nigeria in the book, and this chapter documents a story of human rights abuses that have undermined Nigeria's potential and wasted talents of its people. The author of this chapter calls out an attitude of Nigeria's military rulers, an attitude which also rubbed off on its political class, that the effective rule is a rule by force. And this idea is appealing, unfortunately. It's reflected in the non-nonsense politicians' law and order rhetorics. It is reflected in the attitude that we tend to measure the effectiveness of a government by its ability to mete out legally sanctioned violence. The author of this chapter speaks of peaceful assemblies disrupted by the police violently, police who have efficiently dispersed protests of people reclaiming their rights. And at the same time, despite this efficiency of the police, the author points out that in 1997, 41% of Nigerian kids were not enrolled in any school. The author continues quite rightly, based on this juxtaposition, that development depends and relies on political, economic, and social well-being of the people. The protection of basic human rights, the author rightly claims, translates to economic growth. And the democratic environment is a reassurance for the stability and predictability of political conditions. I'm still quoting the wise words of the book chapter author. Inequalities, high unemployment rates result in increased crime and lawlessness, which are a consequence of desperate people deprived of their rights, trying to make ends meet. Now, those are ideas that are quite clear to us, but they are not self-evident. In the 1960s, in the 1970s, in Africa, constitutionalism and development were juxtaposed. Constitutionalism was sometimes presented as a fruit, a poisonous fruit of Western decadence and impediment to development, which was to be administered by a party, mostly just one single party, or the government. So the sheriff whistles and the world changes. But the people are left behind, and this is, I think, another good thing that the book clearly shows. There are chapters discussing the 1986 UN Declaration on the Right to Development, development understood in the spirit of constitutionalism as a human-centered and participatory process. There's a chapter stating that high unemployment and poverty rates have a common cause: the denial of fundamental rights. The chapter makes a case for a human rights-based approach to development, for a public participation which is not just an alibi exercise, in ticking boxes. There's a policy measure on the website. We gather people, present a menu to pick and choose and to tick. No. Participatory process meant as a conversation of empowered participants in all stages of the development and decision-making process. So there's a call for development actors in the government to create spaces for genuine deliberation of various policy alternatives. This is a link because we are here hosted by a German foundation, and there's a German philosopher, Jürgen Habermas, who passed away this year. And Jürgen Habermas is famous for saying that democracy begins with a conversation. Not just what is efficient, how we handle things technically, but actually what do we want to achieve. So that we come together, we sit and we reason who we are, who we want to be, what is good, what is beautiful, what is just, and what is fair. And this is what Jürgen Habermas is celebrated for. But look at these ideas. If we are all familiar with African governance traditions, and this idea of sitting together and reasoning is an idea which is found in the hands of either white settlers, a tiny group of white settlers, local elites, and corrupt cartels. The country I'm coming to you from Kenya, 17% of usable land is concentrated in the hands of one family. And please Google, or now I use ChatGPT, which family that is, as quite a simple answer. Yeah? And now the author says, if we go that way, proceed on that way, we will end up what the author calls, as my favorite quote from the entire book. We will end up in a vampire state. Vampire state. Now, not yet finally, but almost, the African continental free trade area, which is the third area of which this book canvasses. So this is a chapter mentioned here, which advances the concept of economic constitutionalism, which balances. So on the one hand, is a balancing concept. Constitutional lawyers love balancing. So we balance the need to preserve a free market economy which unlocks people's potential and creativity on one hand, and on the other hand, the government involvement, which is necessary, where economic power is abused by the vampires, and an order of liberty needs to be restored. And there are tough questions to be asked. Can we speak of an order of liberty? That's the term the chapter is using, where, as a result of colonial oppression and unaccountable leadership, or even military rule, as in Nigeria and elsewhere, and one-party state dictatorship, the access to capital and land is concentrated in the hands of a tiny, tiny elite. Can we still have an order of liberty? The same chapter says that AFCFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area, has a potential of unlocking Africa's trade and industrialization. The problem is, however, for whom this potential will work. Who will benefit from this unlocked industrialization and trade potential? And if we fail to confront the realities, the inequalities, if we fail to empower the people and realize human rights, including the socio-economic rights, it's only the vampires that will benefit. And AFCFTA clearly realizes this predicament and this challenge. Just to give you one example, which is also discussed in the book, since the conference, that time it was just a plan or a political program in the AFCFTA agreement. Now we have a very nice protocol on women and youth from 2024. It has been adopted, and it has an obligation to assist small-scale traders. So AFCFTA is not just for the big sharks, for the big companies, but also for the small cross-border traders. And 80%, that's what the research says, so that's not the book, that's me, are women. Yeah. Procedures must be simplified, and those small-scale traders must be assisted, the protocol says.
Yeah, that is part of the presentation of Professor Thomas Millet from University of Namibia, Faculty of Commerce, Management and Law. He's a professor of law looking at the aspect of constitutionalism and Africa Continental Free Trade Area, indicating that when it comes to women and the youth, they must be assisted to partake in the economic integration of Africa. Let's come back shortly and look at updates from Zambia, what is happening, and we'll get into contact with one resident of Zambia to give us what's really happening in Zambia.
Bargain hunters, why pay more when you can pay less at USAfe stores? 4 kilos real good frozen mixed chicken portions, $194.99. 3 kilograms Polana elbow or macaroni pasta at $72.99. 500 grams brick Rama original 70% fat spread at $26.99. 750 ml Right Brand sunflower oil at $29.99. And 700 ml Crystal Gold tomato sauce, an absolute bargain for $22.99. And 5 kilos Marathon white sugar at $99.99. Save big at USAfe.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its staff.
Lipurane wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondo tuto ingida ashike kapeno nweko dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna evitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado inawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshe fa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamoiri nawa ningepata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile konderewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Yeah, we are moving forward with On the Radar News Bulletin, looking at what is happening in Zambia, general elections in Zambia. It's indicated that Zambia incumbent president has taken an early lead, especially looking at the vote counts, which is continuing. It's noted that President Hakainde Hichilema appeared to be ahead, especially looking for the second term, and also the update results that are indicating that by Sunday, which is yesterday, Hakainde Hichilema had won nearly 59% of the vote. That is according to Electoral Commission. Still wait for the final announcement, especially the official confirmation from Zambia Electoral Commission. And there were reports of intimidation, reports of violence, and also claim from opposition, talking about armed raid. But looking into this context, I got into conversation this morning just with one of the residents in Zambia to say what's really happening, what's really going on in Zambia, apart from elections, and also what were some of the events which happened, especially looking at ongoing elections.
Hello, Shombe. Good morning. How are you? Yeah, you have very good questions here, but I'll make it brief. What really happens in Zambia for the violent? Zambia is not a province. It's a country with 10 provinces. And then under political affiliation, other provinces, the opposition won. And those are the people who were misled. They were rejoicing. Other people were running in the streets, doing this and that. That's why the Electoral Commission of Zambia suspended the announcement for the polling stations and for other constituencies to calm the situation. The opposition took a lot of votes in the northern part of Zambia, and that I'm talking about Brian Mundubile, and people were just too quick to do what? To celebrate. Yet until the last constituency is mentioned, until all the figures are verified, that's when you can announce the presidential elections. And according to the constitution of the Zambian law, it says the time they will close the last polling station, they will add 72 hours to announce the winner. So they started voting on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. By the end of today, definitely the winner will be emerged. All right. How do Zambians feel about the Hichilema? Hichilema is not bad. He's doing very well. Not very well, but he's doing well, except that he needs a lot of time to comfort other ministries and other things which the former government left. Besides, the same Hichilema is, according to the Zambians, imagine the former president died in South Africa and he hasn't showed any remorse to bring the dead body or the coffin or the corpse to bury amicably in this country. We have a cemetery only for presidential, and we've buried about 5 of them in the same cemetery. It's called Memorial Park, just at the middle of the Ministry of Defense. If you come to Zambia, I'll drive you there. So the people are grieving because majority of the opposition, they are members of the former president, Edgar Chagwa Lungu. So they are grieving, and the majority, they don't want him to say, no, this guy, how can you keep your fellow former president in South Africa for over a year? Honestly, these were the griefs. You see what I'm saying? These were the griefs. And I'm not the person to talk on behalf of the whole Zambians, but these are my personal perspective. Otherwise, Zambia is a beacon of peace in the whole Southern Africa. Even you in Namibia, if it wasn't for Zambia, you would have not got independence now. South Africa as well, Zimbabwe as well, you see, and many other countries. Zambia was a beacon of peace through Kenneth Kaunda, our first president. If there's any information, I'll let you know, because by the end of this day, maybe midnight or any time in the evenings, they will announce the winner of the Republic of Zambia. It will be now the 7th president to take another term.
Yeah, that is Mr. Moses Banda. It's the citizens of Zambia expressing his the view and perspective from the ground, what has happened, what are some of the challenges, what are possibilities, and also how will be the 7th president of Zambia. Who is that going to be? Especially waiting for final announcement of the winner. So let us look at a short commercial break and come back shortly, especially looking at the continent of Africa and also international foreign exchange rate. We also look at top exported commodities or commodities in demand in terms of international global scale.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its staff.
Lipura wapumbwa Eva tere ulikoni maondo tutoingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado nawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshefa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamo ili nawa ningepata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora etatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile ko berewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I am planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saima, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-288-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Moving forward with the Radar News Bulletin, before we look at international foreign currency exchange, looking at the aspect of sport. Yesterday, Cameroonian women soccer team had won the African Cup of Nations, the first Women African Cup of Nations. Cameroon won against Malawi 3-0. Let's look at this and come back shortly, especially looking at the continental champion, looking at the women.
It's a victory for Cameroon in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. The indomitable Lionesses beat competition debutants Malawi 3-0 in Morocco on Sunday. Cameroon had lost 3 finals but made it 4th time lucky with 2 goals from Marie Ngamanga and another from Naomi Eto.
Truly, the Lionesses were really good. They played very well. The atmosphere was fantastic.
Now I feel happy. I feel like someone whose worries are over a bit. That's what they say. Football gives hope. Football unites.
While the fairy tale journey to the final may have ended in a defeat for Malawi, it was forward Temwa Chawinga who finished as the tournament's top goal scorer. There's still pride among fans at their team's achievement.
Malawi was seen as the underdogs in this tournament because not much has been written about Malawi women's football. What the Scorchers have done is worth commending, despite them not bringing home the trophy.
The 2 finalists will go to the Women's World Cup in Brazil next year, along with fellow semi-finalists Morocco and Algeria.
Yeah, that is what is happening, especially looking at women football. Cameroon is now the queen of soccer in terms of women football, in terms of the African continent. But when you look at COSAFA, remember that Namibia women football team is also a champion when it comes to COSAFA. Let's look at USAVE and come back shortly.
Need some help with the groceries this month? Then USAVE has a competition that is just for you. Every Friday between 1 and 2 p.m., Eagle FM will be giving away a $500 USAVE voucher. To stand a chance of winning the $500 USAVE voucher, all you have to do is follow Eagle FM Namibia on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and be on the lookout for the weekly competition question. USAVE, where good food costs less.
Lipuranenge no wapumbwa eva tere ulikoni maondo tutoingida ashike kapeno nweku dite opoye ekukulile oshafafana nongeshe faili meholamo ihoetike kovano ile koshiwana onongeshe fa yapumbwa kukaraya kovano okupitiramo Eagle FM otuna ebitoda njuka okukwetera oipindi konu kondado nawa nuneudo otukwetera o special ngetashake ngeshe fa omarudi dayo loka opone ushendi fenawa nokumona oijamo ili nawa ningepata fanona monika ko Eagle FM onora itatu imwe mbali heali nola natu heali mbali no heali ile konderewa nora hetatu natu mbali o hetatu batatu o mafelane Eagle FM the eye.
While you are busy enjoying your lunch, while you are busy having some times from 1300 hours, take time and listen to OTR News Bulletin.
On the Radio News Analysis, we go beyond the headlines. We don't just tell you what's happening, we ask why it's happening, how it affects ordinary Namibians, and what it means for the country's future. We examine the structures behind news, connect policy to people's lived realities, and bring in expert voices to make sense of where Namibia is heading.
You want to get into touch with global governance, global diplomacy, economic relation, trade, statistics, human and infrastructure development, and you want to see how policy planning and policy implementation is connected in Namibia, make time and listen to OTR from 1300 hours. Yeah, we are moving forward with on the Radar News Bulletin with me, David Shombe. You can engage us in the studio at 083 288 401 083 288 401 so that you can air your view. Looking at corporate upliftment, promotion, and what is happening in Namibia corporate sector, it is stated that RMB Namibia appoint Tim von Hens as the head of Trade and Treasury Solutions. That is an appointment by RMB Namibia, and also to look at the new head of Trade and Treasury Solution, effectively from May 2026, and through its statement, RMB indicated that is capable of strengthening banks' ability to support business with integrated trade, cash management, and treasury solutions. To look at the profile of the newly appointed head of treasury, It is stated that Von Hayes is a graduate of industrial engineering and digital marketing from Stellenbosch University. He also studied in various institutions such as Equity Institute in the area of project management, foundation of management, and also other relevant fields looking at that industry. He has been with FNB for 5 years, and now he's advanced to the stage of being the head of trade and treasury solutions. That is what is happening, especially looking at Namibia corporate sector. Moving forward to look at foreign exchange rate, stated that look at Namibian dollar per foreign currency, Namibian dollar trading per foreign currency. The main one, euro, standing at 19.31 Namibian dollars. Pound sterling standing at 22.58 Namibian dollars. The US dollar is trading at 16.65 Namibian dollars. Foreign currency unit per Namibian dollar for today is at Kwanza, trading at 13.27 Australian dollar, 0.083, and Botswana Pula, 0.70. That is what is happening, especially looking at the affairs of foreign exchange rate. Now, to look at another aspect of African news, it is stated that another news coming from Cameroon is indicating that the outbreak of cholera in Cameroon has continued since the mid-July and is causing a lot of fear and also panic among the Cameroonians. And it's indicated that the cholera outbreak is spreading across northern Cameroon with more than 1,000 cases and 28 deaths reported since mid-July. That is according to the communique from the health authorities. Let us look at this and come back shortly to look at what is happening in Africa. What is happening in Africa, especially regarding the status quo of health and also the protection of lives, to look into the context of Cameroon. Let's look at this and come back shortly.
At Mora Hospital, it's been the same routine for Ozon Cavalier over the past few days. He puts on protective equipment before entering the area reserved for cholera patients. Our first case arrived on the 18th, a 3-year-old child from Isa. Today, we have a total of 25 cases, including 9 negative rapid diagnostic tests and 1 death. We receive an average of 1 to 2 patients per day. At present, we have 2 patients hospitalized.
À ce jour, nous avons en hospitalisation 2 patients.
The outbreak has spread across the region since mid-July, with more than 1,000 reported cases and 28 deaths. The response is being organized in several districts with the support of Médecins Sans Frontières. We have 3 tents. The first one you see behind me is reserved for hospitalization. There is another tent where we receive all suspected cases and test them. If the test is positive, we send them to the hospitalization area.
Si le test est positif, on les envoie en hospitalisation.
As Mora sees a rise in infections far from the medical tents, community workers are already on the front lines, raising awareness door to door. On cholera, we raise awareness and warn people against open defecation. We ask them to focus on hygiene and sanitation because cholera is deadly. They have seen the serious consequences in previous years when the disease killed many people. Now within the community, people are afraid, and when we talk about cholera, everyone takes precautions. across the region as daily life is marked by poor sanitation and difficult access to clean drinking water. Health authorities are determined to contain cholera before the rainy season intensifies.
Yeah, that is what is happening, especially in Cameroon regarding cholera. And looking at health, looking at the aspect of health in Africa, it's also noted that looking in Democratic Republic of Congo, the fight against Ebola is continuing. The fight against Ebola is continuing, especially looking at new investment from WHO, United States of America, and also contributing states in Africa to look at ending Ebola that is continue spreading in Democratic Republic of Congo and also the neighboring countries. Now, to look into the context of Congo, it has been also indicated that in fighting the Ebola virus, there is a situation of unpaid health workers that are on strike, especially looking at the aspect of Ebola that is continue to make the situation difficult, especially bringing the virus to an end. So let us look at this and come back shortly.
Health workers in eastern Congo say a strike over unpaid wages is disrupting efforts to contain the country's fast-moving Ebola outbreak. At the Nizi Treatment Center in Ituri province, contract tracers and community health workers say they are fanning out across neighborhoods each day to identify people who may have been exposed. The challenge we are facing with tracing right now is that service providers haven't been paid yet. We are also facing challenges related to limited mobility on our field staff. One health worker said staff have not been paid in more than 3 months. Another said surveillance teams are receiving 60 to 70 alerts a day, underscoring the pressure on the response system. Health workers report that progress has now been made in communities, with patients showing up on their own. At first it wasn't easy. But now I don't think there's anyone who is sick hiding in the community to avoid coming in for treatment. But there is still a challenge, if I may bring it up here. As you can see, we have our Ebola treatment center here at the hospital, which has only 80 beds. The outbreak caused by the rare Bundibugyo Ebola virus is unfolding under extremely difficult conditions. There is no approved vaccine or treatment for this strain, although trials are underway. Health officials say strikes, insecurity, community mistrust and misinformation are all hampering the response. Meanwhile, in the communities, effective response is now beginning to bear fruits. Since we started raising awareness, we've been delighted because people are beginning to follow hand-washing guidelines and avoid handling the body. If someone dies at home, people close the door and wait for the response team to handle the burial. Government data published overnight into Tuesday show the outbreak has now reached 4,381 confirmed cases with 2,011 deaths. Authorities say sequencing indicates the outbreak began in February, months before it was officially declared on May 15.
Yeah, that is what is happening in Democratic Republic of Congo, indicating that the virus started months before it was identified. That is one of the reasons it's making it very difficult for health professionals to deal or to contain the situation. Looking at the top traded minerals and prices today is the 17th of August 2026. On top of the minerals trading is iron ore, which is trading at 706.50 US dollars per ton, followed by copper, which is trading at 6.68 US dollars per pound. And you also have gold that is still in the top 5 of top traded minerals in the world, and gold is standing at 4,398 per troy ounce, then followed by silver that is trading at 65.53 US dollars per troy ounce. And lastly, you look at lithium, and that is top 5 of traded minerals in the world: iron ore, copper, gold, silver, and lithium in that respective order. Moving forward, looking at where we are standing, it is stated that the United Nations has continued to warn South Sudan refugee at risk as aid and funding run short. The United Nations continue indicating that South Sudan continue to be a worse humanitarian crisis, and the refugee risk as financial support continue to be falling behind. This will bring us to the end of our On the Radar News Bulletin, and I'll leave you in the good hands of Andreas Erastus from Mandangwa with Temoletu. From me, David Shombe, bye for now. See you around.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person who does not have a capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests and callers are not those of Eagle FM and any of its staff.
Lipuranengelo wapumbwa Eva tere ulikoni maondo tutoingida ashike kapeno nwe kudite opoye ekukulile. Oshafa fana nongeshe faili